How are you doing? Ross and Jack here from Cultaholic Wrestling to make a complete pair of utter whoppers of ourselves as we try and predict 10 years into WWE's future. This seems like quite a fitting topic after what's happened with Vince McMahon, the scandal, the retirement, Stephanie and Nick Khan being made joint CEOs, Triple H is now the head of creative, and also because it recently resurfaced that our friends, I don't know anyone from there, do you, from Bleacher Report?
No, I don't know anyone from Bleacher
but I'll
Report.
just say our friends for the purpose of loveliness. They did an article 10 years ago that resurfaced recently where they predicted 10 years into the future back in May of 2012. Do you want to know a few of their findings?
Yes, please.
They predicted that Richie Steamboat will be the face of WWE here today in 2022.
That's a name I've not heard for a long time.
Shane McMahon would be the chairman and CEO of the company, and John Cena would be the face of another wrestling organisation. So we're sure to be on for a fantastic video today as we look into the future to 2032. Richard, if you've got an intro, why don't you? So Jack and I have brought 5 bold predictions each to the table. Jack, you might as well kick us off.
I've started off on a controversial one, sadly. Saudi Arabia WrestleMania will be a thing.
Oh, you dirty slut.
I've kept it a bit open-ended. By saying a thing, I mean that it could either become a regular thing or at least one WrestleMania will take place in Saudi Arabia, because we've already seen. Well, it got interrupted by the pandemic and everything, but we've seen the wheels in that direction start to move already. We've had the greatest Royal Rumble, and we had... What was there?
The Fiend lost to Goldberg.
There's been big things that have happened.
The shift in management had been over there because it started off very much like a joke. We had the greatest Royal Rumble, of course, where we had Hiroko Sumi portraying Yokozuna.
Yes.
And their guys wanted other people who were also passed away.
Yes.
And it just seemed like a bit of a piss take just to take all their money. But yes, more and more monumental things have been happening on these shows.
Yeah.
So I can't see that happening.
They've moved from glorified house shows to arguably one of the bigger, more eventful pay-per-views on WWE's regular calendar. In a world where you can travel about again. Yeah. So I think there will be at least one WrestleMania in Saudi Arabia. Now, I don't know whether that'll be counted as part of the numbered WrestleManias. But remember that trend a little while ago? They've moved slightly away from it now. They do refer to WrestleMania by number sometimes, but generally it's more like this is the WrestleMania remembered by the player button or the big star or sometimes the city that it's in, rather than them explicitly saying it's WrestleMania 30, whatever. So they could well have one in Saudi Arabia that is just called WrestleMania in Jeddah or Riyadh.
Saudi Mania.
Yes, Saudi Mania. And I just think that, unfortunately, it's probably going to happen. Not unfortunate for the good people of Saudi Arabia. I'm talking more about the regime and everything and the human rights record and all that sort of thing. I'm not begrudging the fans over there their chance to see a WrestleMania, but I just think that if they have one there before they have one in many other places that perhaps deserve a WrestleMania more, like England, you know.
It all comes down to people who have money, doesn't it? Because Saudi Arabia's got the money. They've signed this 10-year deal with WWE. That's where we're going. City's bid for WrestleManias over in America, and the one who has the most money and the most, the most wonderful-looking package.
Yeah.
Not like the Miz's, but you know what I mean. Yes. Wonderful-looking package to host a WrestleMania there. That's the one that gets it. So
is
money
that why
talks.
we see the same cities come up again and again?
I would assume
your
so,
Dallases, your ones in Florida, your Orlandos. Yeah. It's going back to California now, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that, you know.
That's a big, beautiful, brand new stadium, though. So I assume that one's a lot of money put into it.
Yeah, so I think we'll see at least one Saudi Arabia WrestleMania. I don't know whether it'll be considered part of the official numbered WrestleManias, as I've said, but I do think that things of note will happen there. Title changes, big matches, all the fireworks in the world. I think that'll probably happen in the next 10 years.
Yeah, it's got to be an official WrestleMania if it's called WrestleMania, for goodness sake. I can see it happening. My first prediction for the next 10 years, or where we'll be in 10 years' time actually, is SmackDown on Fox will be the only weekly show that builds to matches on monthly premium live events. And we all know how the consumption of media from us mere mortal human beings has changed over the past 10 to 20 years, so goodness knows what it's going to be like in another 10 years' time. Just for reference, I've done a little bit of light digging. I've got some stats to back up my argument here. So the rating, the TV rating, you know, the millions and millions that watch the wrestling, for the July 20th episode of Raw in 2015 was 3.79 million, which was up 250,000 from the previous week. I found the stats for the 18th of July 2022 Monday Night Raw, and that was down to 1.77 million, which was up just 35,000 from the previous week. That's a drop of 2.02 million in just 7 years.
Yeah, that is big.
So what's it going to be like in 10 years more time?
Who knows? Is that because of WWE losing popularity or just television?
There's a part of that, but I think there's a lot more as we go into the TikTok, the Instagram reel, the YouTube era. I think a lot more just catching up on the highlights rather than committing 3 hours every single Monday night. I think that's a more appealing thing. So I can see a future where we have one weekly show, and that weekly show being SmackDown, because that is now the flagship, because that's where more of the money is. Sorry, Monday Night Raw, but USA Network don't pay as much as Fox do these days. We all know that. So basically, I can see it being much more like an AEW buy-in, in that it's going to be wonderfully put together promo packages rather than, the sit round the table business that WWE do with Booker T and whatnot. And these promo packages are going to tell the story, which will, go through the month and then build to the premium live event at the end of the month, because they're much more easier to consume, 3, 4, 5 minute clips on the YouTube, on the TikTok, on the Instagram, and how the sort of general media consumption is going in the world today.
So you think these video packages and stuff, where are they going to happen?
So they'll be shot here, there and everywhere, but that's what will be aired on this show.
Oh, right, okay.
I can see it being hosted by, I don't know, Kevin Patrick, let's just say. He's at the helm. Or Kayla Braxton. She's at the helm. She's got maybe a couple of people to have a little discussion, but they're cut to these promo packages, which is telling the story rather than we have two 5 hours of wrestling TV every week, because just the way that media is going.
That's going to replace Raw.
Yeah, I think we're all finished.
Just cease to exist.
Yeah. That's my bold prediction for 10 years' time.
Or they could move it on to YouTube, I guess.
They could do that, because they could put it on Peacock for all we know, but I think in terms of what's on television, it'll just be SmackDown, because that's where the more money's at these days. If Fox are still obviously interested in keeping up their wrestling coverage, I assume they are. It seems to be going quite well. Yeah. They're consistently over 2 million. We see it on Twitter, don't we? Rampage is 400,000. SmackDown, 2 million.
If it got to that stage, do you think they'd just swap? If their thing with the USA Network ended, they'd make, just to keep it going as the longest running episodic thing, basically what you've said, but call the Fox one Raw.
Yeah,
the Raw will carry on, but one of them will drop away. Right.
I can't see a world where, just the way that, as I say, media consumption's going, that we keep up with at least 5 hours of weekly wrestling from one company every single week. So my bold prediction is Raw goes, SmackDown becomes the one, and we have less sort of in-ring action built into a big premium live event. We have more sort of storytelling, maybe even soap-like builds. Like your Coronation Streets on the cobbled streets, Seth Rollins is taking down Riddle, down the Rover's Return, stuff like that.
Yes.
Not really, you know what I mean? Though.
I know what you mean. I think as well, just on the general topic of this video, if something happens in, say, the next year, if one of these magically comes true, we should make a big deal of it. Which one of us is predicting.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, come on.
I know.
Yes.
We've already booked the Forbidden Door pay-per-view. Go and watch that video now, by the way.
It really actually went really well. Yeah. Very complimentary. Thank you, everybody, for that. My second pick also concerns media and the way that it is consumed in the modern era. I've said that WWE will experience a surge of interest at some point thanks to a groundbreaking behind-the-scenes Netflix series. Non-wrestling fans will love it, but we will all hate it.
Let's explain.
This is inspired by, have you heard of Drive to Survive?
Yes.
And I've called this one, which Richard hopefully flashed up the caption, Sports Entertain to Survive. The F1 behind the scenes, very highly dramatised.
Sports Entertain to Remain.
Nice, I like that better, Richard.
Yeah.
Instead of that one, can you put that one in instead? And I think to remain relevant in the modern world.
Equally more catchy.
I think that because the way that the F1 experienced a huge boost, especially I think in America where it wasn't that popular, because of this Netflix series, which typically Formula One fans who already understand the ins and outs of Formula One didn't like, because it wasn't as in detail. It skimmed over a lot of drama. It manufactured some other drama and stuff like that. But it overall led to a huge boost in the popularity of Formula One. So now I believe in the works. There's a tennis one, there's a golf one, and there's a cycling one.
We're seeing with football teams as well, don't we? Like Spurs documentary, Arsenal's got one coming out, and it's not like a reality TV like Total Divas that we're about here. No. It's like just behind the scenes. None of it seems to be manufactured. It all just seems to be real. Yeah.
But there are elements of it that are exaggerated, or they very much tell their own narrative as well. Some bits of the F1 season, for example, are highlighted to try and maximise drama where there might not necessarily have been that much drama, and the other way around, some things are skimmed over. That's why I think that it won't be for the wrestling fans, it'll be to entice the casuals. But The only problem with it being wrestling is it's a big leap because of kayfabe.
Yeah.
And I don't think anything, apart from your odd wrestling with shadows and that sort of thing, there hasn't been a sustained high profile behind the scenes documentary like that. But if WWE get desperate to stay relevant in this ever evolving world, then I think they could take that leap, and especially now that Vince has has stepped down, then maybe it's time for a more groundbreaking new direction.
And his documentary's been canned, of course. Nick Salcedo was a scoop there a couple of weeks ago. So let's pitch an episode then. What do you suggest happens on these episodes? Is it going to be like Triple H is head of talent relations, and we're in his office, fly on the wall, and we're seeing Seth Rollins coming to him, saying he's not happy with his angles and whatnot?
Yeah, various points, I suppose. I think a season could chart maybe from, I don't know, maybe it would be a whole year if they could allow them access for that long. It's my pitch, I can do what I want. Maybe it covers a year of WWE and ends at WrestleMania. Or it could even just be a shorter version from the Rumble at WrestleMania. And yeah, you get the stories of, kind of similar to WWE 24s, but I think less in-house. It's more of an outside
less wanky as well.
Yeah.
More real, more gritty.
Yeah, but for it to work, of course, it would have to not heap praise on WWE all the time. It couldn't be a celebration of WWE, just an observation of the wacky world of sports entertainment.
And including lots of Attitude Era superstars, because that's, of course, who we're trying to entice back in. The people who were watching back then.
Absolutely.
Don't watch now. But I can see that sort of happening. It'd be interesting to see, though. Let's come back in 10 years' time and find out, eh?
Yeah. Imagine if we're still here in 10 years.
Doubtful. 2 years will be nice. My next pitch, or prediction, for the next 10 years in WWE, is that we will be able to attend wrestling shows without even having to attend them, and wrestlers will also be able to wrestle on the wrestling shows, even if they're retired or dead.
Oh, how does this work then?
This works because basically, I reckon in the future, we'll be able to buy virtual tickets, which will allow us to put on our VR headsets at home. We've all got one, haven't we?
Yeah.
I haven't got one.
No,
but we'll have one in the future.
Yeah.
When we're living in our pods, living in the metaverse, where we go to work by going into a little room in our house and putting a VR headset on and just sitting in the office while at home, while not going to the actual office. You know that future? That scary future? We'll never go outside because the earth will be too hot.
Is this just in 10 years? The next 10 years?
Aye, terrifying. But when it comes to wrestling, we'll be able to buy a virtual ticket, which will get us access to a video feed, a camera or something, or a man wearing a GoPro, something like that will be on the front row, giving us a big old panoramic view, and we'll be able to put on our headsets and watch WrestleMania as if we're in the front row, even though we're not, and even though quite possibly a real human being might be, because I assume human beings going to wrestling shows won't end in the next 10 years.
No. If something happens on the other side of the apron, have a run round.
Yeah.
Have a look what's going on. Just get in the ring.
Stand up, have a peek.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be interesting. Could you get in the ring with that sort of technology? I
don't know.
I've got no idea either.
Works.
Seems like a good idea on paper, though.
I feel like you could even have historic tickets where you go back and watch WrestleMania 3.
Oh, I'd good that. I'd love to go back to old wrestling shows and be there in the flesh, sort of.
Imagine Sam. He'd go and watch the history of Kaiji Muto.
I know. I would go and watch Aretha Franklin at WrestleMania 3.
Yeah.
What an amazing performance that would be to see live. But anyway, on top of that, I think we'll see holograms play a bigger part in professional wrestling in the future.
Oh.
This comes off the back of Kevin Nash's recent comments on his podcast, where he revealed, obviously after Scott Hall passed away earlier this year, it was around about WrestleMania season, and the company pitched to Kevin Nash something to do with Scott Hall and a hologram, but it was too soon for Kevin Nash, so he didn't want to be involved. But hologram stuff in wrestling, or WWE at least, it seems to be a thing they're thinking about already. So it could be a case in the future where we could get retired and or deceased superstars coming back for wrestling matches against other holograms, sort of like just playing 2K22 brought to life, but a bit better because they're actual holograms in the arena you could see with your own eyes.
They've done it with Tupac. He played a Coachella.
ABBA as well. ABBA had the ABBA Arena, or whatever it was called in London, where you paid $15,000 million to go and watch a couple of holograms dance away. But I think that could be the future of professional wrestling there. In terms of it's another consumption bit. That's my final consumption point. But I think that's a way wrestling could change in terms of viewing.
Fair enough. Very interesting indeed. My next one's more of a storyline or a match. Mine's more about the wrestling now, which I'm assuming you've got some of those as well. I think that Cody Rhodes versus Chris Jericho will main event a WrestleMania or a SummerSlam.
Oh.
Yes. I think that the way that Jericho has been going in AEW recently, his feuds have been drawn out a bit too much. He's helping get people over sort of by wrestling him and being on his level, but by the time they're through with him, I feel like they've lost momentum, if anything.
Yeah.
If the feuds were half as long, as we've talked about on the podcast and stuff, then it would be far more beneficial to that wrestler. So I think the frictions started to appear between Chrissy J and Tony K. And I think that eventually Jericho's going to split and go back to WWE. He's talked before about how he's more of a Vince guy, I suppose, but he's still is cordial with Vince, which I assume means he's also got a decent relationship with just WWE as a whole. He made his fortune there, so I think it could all end in tears between him and Tony, and he could end up back in the WWE. And I think if he did so, the way that Cody was treated when he came back, it would be a huge deal now. And I think they would feud, and it would lead to WrestleMania. Cody is the face, Chris Jericho is the heel. I've said we'll main event a WrestleMania or a SummerSlam. I'll try to give myself a little bit of leeway there.
I think that's a lot more likely to happen
it's
now.
Not a wild one, is it?
Now that Triple H is in charge, and presumably we're going to acknowledge more wrestling promotions than we did before.
Yes.
I assume that's a lot more likely than it was a couple of weeks ago.
Yes. You'd come out of Judas, of course. You'd have the battle of the big theme tunes as well. And I think... I don't know who'd win. Depends when it is. Depends on the circumstances, I suppose.
It'd be an interesting one to watch, because obviously Cody's reception in the WWE's been fantastic, but he was obviously there more... Well, no, he wasn't there more recently than Jericho. I was about to talk myself out to a point there. That just makes no sense at all, Ross. Shut up, Ross, you idiot. I was going to be... It'd be interesting to see the reaction of the core WWE people. Would they care about this, AEW tie-in?
Maybe. Maybe not. I think also it'd have to be some sort of no DQ stipulation, because Jericho's getting on a bit. And I wouldn't trust him in the next 10 years. It would have to be in the next few years of the 10.
Is he 62? Would he be in 10 years' time? I don't know.
Maybe not in the next 10 years. Maybe in the next 5.
Hey, Sting's proven anything's possible in your 60s.
Very true. Maybe it would be a no DQ match then. But I think that could actually happen, that one.
But I think Jericho going back's nailed on. It brings me to a point I'll make later on. But I think after the bad idea by stupid creative, whatever it was back in the very early days of AEW, I think he's toned down his shots across the board, because I think he wants that Hall of Fame, that coveted Hall of Fame ring.
He does seem to have... Yeah, he is taking less shots at WWE now.
My next prediction for the next 10 years of World Wrestling Entertainment also has a little AEW tie-in, because I firmly believe that MJF will be the face of WWE in 10 years' time. How old will MJF be in 10 years' time, I hear you ask? Are you ready to be sick, everybody? Because he'll be 36 years of age and just entering his professional wrestling prime.
Yeah, his prime.
That's if he doesn't go to the movies or Hollywood like he's apparently made little overtures to in the more recent times, so we'll see that. I think Vince McMahon leaving and Triple H becoming the head of creative is the best thing that could have happened for those who want to see MJF, as we know and love him from AEW and elsewhere around the wrestling world, appear in WWE as we know him. Because as we all know, Vince McMahon's got a weird dislike for things he didn't create himself and not allowing them to flourish like they should probably do, because they're good anyway, despite the fact he didn't create them, and because of the overscripting of promos, which I assume after last week's SmackDown, and more so last week's Raw, as we're sat here now, I think they've toned down the scripting already.
It already seems to have been, a little bit.
Yeah.
A few new ideas. It wasn't like a groundbreaking show or anything, but there was a few little things sprinkled in. You thought, new directions maybe.
Things are changing, and you assume the changes would become more apparent as the weeks and the months go on. So goodness knows where we'll be.
If you'd pitched this 2 weeks ago, I'd have said, no chance. No chance in hell.
Yeah.
But now, because of that, because Vince is gone, you're right, this becomes infinitely more likely.
Yeah, and as we're sat here now, Tony Khan still has the issue of not paying MJF the same money as he wants to give to these former WWE superstars that he's brought in. And the longer this drags on, the less likely, I think personally, it'll get resolved in Tony Khan's favour, which of course would mean MJF going back to AEW. And quite frankly, as we all know, WWE have more money than AEW, and they'd be stupid not to throw to MJF if, of course, MJF is still interested in doing the professional wrestling and not going into that there Hollywood. And I think this also, just to bring it and make another case and to get MJF into WWE, I think this ties into why, a big reason in my head at least, why Cody went back.
Okay.
Because I think in Hollywood, they will not have a clue about AEW.
No.
I asked a pal from home over the weekend, he seen what's going on with AEW. They had no idea what was going on. They had no idea that AEW was a thing, which just tells you, outside this weird wrestling bubble that we all live in here today, people just don't have a clue when it comes to the inner workings and the war that's going on in the professional wrestling world. So I think the Hollywood bigwigs will see WWE Superstar as a more impressive and a more alluring quality than AEW wrestler. So I think Cody going back, because of course with his little judging wrestling bit on that program, and there's other little bits that he's doing in wider entertainment. He's got
the Go Big Show.
Yeah, the Go Big Show, that's the one. He's got his sights set on more than just professional wrestling.
Yes.
And if MJF has the same sort of outlook on life and his career and whatnot, I assume being in WWE will open up more doors than being in AEW would do. But that's just me speculating.
Your point there about MJF, I do think it's one that we definitely could see happen. The face-off, yeah, maybe. He's charismatic enough.
Yeah.
The bad guy face-off.
The bad guy face-off, yeah. You need two. You need the yin and the yang.
You do. But also, I think this opens up a wider point about Vince stepping down. It's obviously nobody knows what's going to happen to WWE now. Will it improve them? Will it be into the unknown and no one's interested? Will investors pull away and be like, whoa? Or
well, clearly not by the stock market.
Well, yes, yeah, and also. Does this make WWE a more enticing place now for these AEW wrestlers who we thought, well, we'll never see the likes of MJF jump over because they'll be treated like a manager? Now it's not just MJF you've got to think about who's going to maybe be tempted. It's everyone else now as well.
I'm thinking Andrade and people like that, people who, Triple H showcased wonderfully in NXT, gone to AEW, it's not worked out. I don't care what you say, dear viewer. He's not as good as he. Is he?
Andrade?
Yeah,
he's not been given a chance to. Yeah, he's not booked as well.
Not booked as well. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. So now Triple H is obviously they've got that relationship there. Imagine if Adam Cole, that relationship, he ran NXT for several years under Triple H, didn't he?
Well, Johnny Gargano's already been speculated upon as someone who might go back.
And he would never have worked under Vince McMahon because he's too small, as we all know, for Vince McMahon. Not for us, just for Vince McMahon. So let's see what might happen. I think it's open to. A cat of worms. A cat of worms.
Yes, it has.
A cat full of worms. Yes.
My next one, my fourth one, also concerns MJF to a degree. I think we'll see a reverse Outsiders storyline. I've called it Outsiders 2.0 with the reunited team of MJF and Wardlow. They'll turn up like Nash and Hall, Hey Yo, and all that sort of stuff. WWE, then once that's all died down, once they've done their thing and now they're established in WWE, then WWE will try to push Wardlow and leave MJF behind, leading to an irreparable rift between Triple H and Big Brucey P, or the Bruce Pritchard equivalent, whoever is in Bruce Pritchard's
do you reckon Bruce Pritchard will be there like at the end of this year? I don't think he will be.
That's what this kind of hinges on. Because I don't know. I know that Triple H is far more open to the indie style or to a more diverse range of looks for his superstars. They can be shorter, they can be whatever. They can be athletic big men like Keith Lee. But I don't know if that'll be wholesale changes straight away in WWE. There's still going to be people in there who prefer the classic way of looking at wrestling. You want everyone to be big and have muscles. So I think Triple H is going to end up butting heads with people. First Brucey P and then whoever else as well. Possibly anyway. And I think that if MJF and Wardlow were to come in, they'd look at Wardlow and go, he's money. Look at him. And look at his manager. Oh, his manager wrestles as well. Not for long. And they'll try and push Wardlow. And then Triple H will stick up for, I assume, his boy, MJF. And it'll lead to a rift, which we'll see on Netflix play out.
It all ties together.
Yeah.
I can see that happening. I think it's going to be interesting because it's going to happen more and more now, surely. The more AEW people go to WWE than the other way around, I'd assume.
You'd think.
It feels like Tony's done it that much now that it's sort of lost all its effect.
I guess it depends how much secret influence is Vince still going to have as majority shareholder? Is he going to feed ideas to Stephanie and all that sort of stuff?
That's the big cat and the worm in the pigeon, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
The cat and the worm in the pigeon. Bloody hell. Well, I don't know what to say there.
I don't know either. Yeah. Fair enough. I just thought it was a storyline I'd throw in there.
Yeah,
as well.
I can see them going back to the 90s. Triple H loved the 90s. He loves good things in wrestling. We saw certain things getting tied into NXT back in the day, like Halloween Havoc he brought in, and the in your house sets and whatnot. And
he kind of books in a slightly more AEW style than a WWE style Triple H. He loves paying homage to the past.
We're doing that again. We're speaking about AEW too much, aren't we, on a WWE-centric video? Sorry, comments. But I'm going to go straight down the middle now, because my next prediction for the next 10 years is that in 10 years' time, it'll become a tradition, a normal thing in the wrestling calendar. AEW and WWE will have a yearly show together, which will be facilitated initially by Chris Jericho. It's sort of going back to what Jack was saying earlier, but this is merely going off Jericho's comments about Vince McMahon on their podcast more recently, and not sort of going in as hard as he might have done. Just the coveted Hall of Fame spot will go back again. I think Jericho really wants that. You just get that sense of the guy, I think, personally. And we all know that he loves to do things, then on retrospective things and his podcast and whatnot, he likes to give himself more credit than he's maybe due. So facilitating the proper forbidden door, facilitating that being cast open, I think that's something we want to get involved with as well. And we couple that with the fact that back in 2020, the year 2020 that is, Triple H said the following: look, in what you've seen in the past, progress, ICW, evolve, all those things. Yeah, we're open for business in a lot of ways. People's thoughts, misconceptions, their perceived knowledge of what we do, how we think is often greatly misinterpreted and not necessarily accurate. Are we open to the right business opportunities? Yeah, at any given time we're open to things. It depends on what they are and are they beneficial to us in the long term. What is the long term, you say? I'm not talking about 3 or 6 months. Long term, 10 years, 15 years from now, he added. Is that beneficial? Is that meaningful? Is that long term? That's how we think. Apparently, according to Triple H back in 2020, it's much longer in duration, not necessarily worried by the minute by minute, it's the long duration. And let me tell you, the rising tide, it brings up all the ships.
Yes.
The AEW one and WWE one. And I think in a few years' time, it's just the sense I got from the Forbidden Door pay-per-view that we saw. Obviously, it was a great night for professional wrestling, but the build and the outlook heading into the show was low. Because I think New Japan's dropped off the face of the earth. And I think that might continue to happen, especially over this side of the planet. Maybe.
Yeah.
They didn't seem to be turning the ship around, as good as a show it was. And I think that'll go down so far for New Japan that it'll become like a one-way street in terms of who benefits from that sort of Forbidden Door. So AEW be looking for a different Forbidden Door.
The most forbidden of doors.
The most forbidden of doors, and obviously one where both companies can benefit.
Yes, I can see that. I wouldn't say it's the most likely one we've said.
No.
But I can definitely see it happen. Imagine the squared circle would explode online.
And I think it'll get to the point where, because it goes back to the media consumption thing and this sort of downward trend of the ratings and whatnot, it'll get to a point in the next 10 years, you would assume, where certain companies or networks might pull out just because it's going so down. I know it's in relation to different sort of shows, it's not that bad. It's just in relation to wrestling years, previous years, it's that bad. But I don't know, it just feels like there's going to be a breaking point in the future where the business wants to flourish rather than these companies
just going to have to work together.
Yeah.
To save wrestling.
I reckon
save us Y2J.
Tony and Nick Khan will be best friends in 10 years' time.
Once they've had their last man standing match at this Forbidden Door show.
Yes, obviously.
If you want to hear some great ideas for what a WWE AEW Forbidden Door show would look like, just check out our video already on this channel.
Mention that, bloody hell. That's the first time it's been mentioned today. But I would like to see maybe Survivor Series be that show where we have the AEW versus WWE stuff. Because it makes sense. And as they do it today, which obviously might change because Vince McMahon isn't running the ship anymore, as they do it today, that's a dead concept and we all know it. So they could revive it with the AEW versus WWE thing.
Feel bad for Survivor Series.
I know, but it is dead, isn't it, as a concept?
Yes. My final prediction is not a Survivor Series show, but a similar sort of theme. I think we'll have a regular NXT World Cup.
Ooh.
This goes back to Triple H talking about global localization. His vision when he was in charge of NXT was to have basically NXT UK was the first example, wasn't it? But to have NXTs all over the world, one in Japan, one in Mexico, one in wherever. God, I think Saudi Arabia was one in India. And I think that he will slowly implement this, but maybe, because they struggled in places. They tried to get in with Japan, I think, and then Japan's already got loads of promotions and they went, no. The UK was slightly more generous and sacrificed our own wrestling team for the benefit of NXT. So I think he'll continue to try and do that. I don't think he'll be able to resist. He loves the idea of a global empire of NXTs, and I think they'll all come together and form the NXT World Cup. And the inaugural NXT World Cup will be won by, and it won't be like as long as the Football World Cup, it's not going to be 32 different countries, but I think the inaugural one will be won by NXT India, because they can't resist that gargantuan, untapped Indian market. Remember that random one show they did? That was aimed entirely at the Indian audience?
With the Indian people they brought in as like wrestlers.
Yeah, pretending to be wrestlers.
No. They opened
some of them.
They had the performance centre over there, didn't they? In trials and whatnot. And they brought them in and had like AJ Styles and Charlotte Flair.
Drew was there.
Yeah, Drew, all the big stars. What did we get over here for NXT? Tommy End.
it was good.
Neville, that was good.
It was a good match.
There's levels, isn't there?
Yeah, there are levels. But they tried that, didn't they? Now I can see just the winning pinfall being made in the final elimination match or whatever against Japan being made by Shanky, and then he dances away. He's having a great time.
This could be the first episode of your proposed Netflix documentary. What happened to Triple H when he got hoofed out of NXT?
Well, yes.
Because I think this prediction here depends on what happened there. Is there a way for Triple H to go back to sort of the head of NXT and developmental in the company?
If he's too busy, which I assume he will be doing the head of creative role in WWE, I think he'll at least be talking to Sean a lot, going like, can you try a bit more of that global localization? And now I don't think it'll be as crowd pleasing as the Triple H era of NXT, because the Shawn era is. Well, actually, you love the Shawn era.
Shawn era is good. They're both good.
Is it Shawn who puts the 2.0 in NXT 2.0, or is that Brucey P?
I don't know who it is. No, Shawn's given the credit, which I can't take away from that. But at the start, it was said that Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard were a lot more hands-on. But I don't know. It's what's out here now. It's magic either way. And black and gold was good as well. I've said this many a time. It goes black and gold 14 to 19, or 15 to 19.
Yeah.
19 to 21 is a lot worse than 2.0. It just goes down.
Yeah. And now it's up here for you.
Yeah, it's gone there.
But that was my final prediction anyway. An NXT World Cup of sorts.
Global localization. My final prediction revolves around Triple H as well. Triple H will quit his new roles that he's got very recently, or even potentially quit the company as a whole over frustrations brought on by the wants and needs of the USA Network and Fox.
Oh.
This is one major thing that is gnawing away at my head when I see people on social media and the internet and whatnot going, Triple H is going to change things forever. It's going to be so good night and day. All these things are going to go. All these new things are going to come in. I'm just saying, what do the networks want? And how much are these networks controlling what we see? We don't know that detail, do we? I think that's a crucial one. And this comes from us knowing... I'm not going to say the name, actually. We know someone who was a producer on the World of Sport Saturday night show over here in the UK, which, of course, was put up against NXT UK.
Yeah.
And that because that went away, NXT UK maybe isn't what it could have been. Yes, because that war wasn't there to be won anymore. And they said that ITV, who obviously aren't a professional... Well, they were not interested, were they, at all, in professional wrestling, really, when we look back on that period of time.
Which is why it looked like any ITV game show, like the set and everything was weird.
They had control over camera angles and... certain down to the camp, they had control over all sorts of minute details, including how camera cuts worked when sort of torsos made contact with the ring, because they had to cut on contact to show how moves, not to show the kids how the moves were done and how the moves were taken, so the kids couldn't do them at home. That's what I was told anyway. So we just don't know how much we see in terms of WWE's output and how much the camera cuts and other stuff that annoys us to no end. How much is that down to the networks and not necessarily down to Kevin Dunn? Now, I'm not defending Kevin Dunn. Kevin Dunn's an arsehole, but he might be under direction. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it might come to a period of time in the future where Triple H is trying to implement these changes, but the networks who have paid for the thing Vince McMahon built are saying, no, we don't want them. We paid for this thing that Vince McMahon built, and we want to continue with this thing that Vince McMahon built.
Before he got a TV deal, Triple H, in hindsight, had like an incredibly free reign with NXT. He could do whatever he wanted.
He had one person wanted to do, didn't he?
Yeah.
Vince.
And Vince didn't seem to care. So he could do what you want. And because it was only on the network, then they could get away with it. And then it wasn't just the TV deal, was it? But then things seemed to become a little bit more constricted as it went along. Yeah,
he's obviously proven over the last 10 years in putting together NXT that he knows what to do. He knows what the wrestling fans want, both the casual and the hardcore. He books a takeover card and works backwards. The lighting and whatnot. We used to like the dimmed down lighting.
Cool.
Yeah, it was cool. The sort of heavy metal influence that was brought in. Ooh, poppy.
Now he's got to be mainstream.
Yeah, he's got to be mainstream now. God. What do the networks want in terms of music? What do they want in terms of lights? What do they want in terms of camera cuts? We just don't know how much the USA Network and Fox have a say on what we see on Raw and SmackDown. And I think there's a situation in the future where Triple H, I'm going to say 3 years.
Oh.
So within the next 10 years, but in 3 years. In 10 years, Triple H won't be there in his current role and maybe in the company. But in 3 years, it'll all fall apart because of the networks.
Then who takes over then?
I have no idea.
So, yeah. Nick Khan.
Laurel Thingy from Saturday Night Live.
Right.
What's he called? I've forgotten his name.
Laurel?
Laurie, I don't know what his
Colin
name
Jost.
was. No, not Colin Jost.
Lorne Michaels.
Lorne Michaels, that's the one.
Right, the head of Saturday Night
That's
Live.
that fella.
The
He'll
Vince
take over.
McMahon of Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, he'll take over because he knows how to run things into the ground. I'd just say I've never watched Saturday Night Live.
Shots fired.
Well, a lot of people say it's not what it used to be.
Apparently, yeah, but I think they mean like it's not like what it used to be when Eddie Murphy was on it.
Oh.
It's not been good for 20 years. It's quite similar to wrestling fans, actually.
Yeah, just because Stone Cold's not there. But there we go. That's my final prediction for the next 10 years. Let us know in the comments down below what your predictions are for what WWE will look like in 10 years' time after what's happened recently and all this sort of fallout. Any closing remarks?
No, I'm just excited to see. I'm going to strap myself in for the next 10 years and see how right we are.
And we'll see if in 10 years' time, if Cultaholic is still a thing, which is heavily doubtful, if this gets shared on Reddit and people will take the piss out of me and Jack.
VR headsets on, or however you watch things these days. Hello to the year 2032.
How are you doing?
Yes.
Do we still speak English?
And we'll see you soon. What do we say now?
See you in the future.
Yeah.
All the best.